You know people who make inferior arguments when they say shit, well, it doesn't show who hits harder. It actually does show who hits harder because he with the best technique and transferable skills wins. Like take this video for example. If you don't think this is hitting hard, you're an idiot.
In 29, 2016.
Look at that last
9/29, 2000.
That was fast and it was direct and it was powerful. First of all, I'm not a hater. Just because no one can beat me at the most relevant martial arts competition or form of competing doesn't mean that I hate other martial artists. I hate those, or I resent those who are trying to deprive me of my rightful place with nonsensical logic. They say that point sparring means nothing when first you have to look at the definition of martial arts. Traditionally, by default, these are traditional codified systems. They're codified. They're traditional. They're part of the heritage of a nation, right? So traditionally, automatically it means something. When you consider their combat arts, and sparring is the most effective form of battlefield training, and it shows the transferable, translatable, communicable, convertible, and universal skills automatically means something. So to say that, oh, that means nothing, is like saying that you can beat Bruce Lee at nunchucks just because he hasn't beat anybody up with nunchucks. You're like, oh, I can beat you with these nunchucks. Hitting the ping pong ball doesn't prove anything. In order for him to be that precise and fast, he had to cultivate his technique and his transferable skills to that point. What helped Bruce Lee cultivate his weapons excellence wasn't just training with those specific weapons, which does help, obviously, but it was the transferable skills and the principles, the universal principles of martial arts that he learned to apply. To reduce martial arts to a sports competition with rules or a to reduce the violence takes away from what martial arts really is. These are combat arts. To say, hey, you can't gouge out this guy's eye, you can't strike him in the groin, you can't chop him in the throat or chop him in the neck, which, by the way, would be assault and battery with intent to do great bodily harm, as opposed to punching somebody in the face, which is just assault and battery, right? So you see they're trying to reduce or belittle martial arts to a sports competition or to a kind of immature fight when it is for combat. You're supposed to crack their fucking spine and paralyze them. You're supposed to pull out knives and stab them. You're supposed to grab bottles and bash them on their head, grab rocks on the battlefield when you're down and smash it into the temple. You're supposed to use these transferable skills that sparring demonstrates magnificently. You know what else is sad is that I would have been in some martial arts school right now, not because I need to fight better, but because I would appreciate the art and the interaction with the students and the bonding experience and everything. Because just like for the same reason I go to church, it's to be around the people of like minds who have a certain moral code. More often than not, perhaps you see on martial arts, I saw this one in the school in Santa Teresa, this Taekwondo school, say discipline, honor, and integrity, and certain principles of morality that are painted on the martial arts school. But because the gang stalking and how I've been treated, I promise you I'll never be trained by anyone or go to any school. And you see how dishonorable it is for martial artists to contribute to gang stalking. It makes it clear to a man with great honor that it's not a worthwhile experience to go train with gang stalkers. They don't have any honor. To train with a martial arts system whose practitioners and teachers and sifus do not have honor is like training to shoot, with squirt guns. Incidentally, also to say, the sparring means nothing, or to have a form of martial art competition without extreme violence, or without the sparring showing the skills, or extreme violence proving the violent part that you can be violent and apply it violently, is like saying we're going to have show who's the best gunfighter, but you can't shoot, you can only pistol whip. See, either you're going to do it in a way with like paintball shooting or something, right, that shows the principles to a certain extent. It's not a great example, but it's a fairly good one. Or you're going to change the rules in a way that it makes it obsolete. You see, if you cannot strike somebody barehanded without a glove with intent to do great bodily harm, you have given the grappler the upper hand. You're probably going to, especially if he's a bigger guy, thick bone guy, like Fabrico Verdum or Cain Velasquez or Daniel Cormier. Okay, you'll probably strike him. There's more often than not, you're not going to knock him out with one hit or two hits. He's going to be coming towards you, and you're going to hit him, and he's going to be more desperate to grab onto you to stop the pain and to get even with you. And then, he's almost certainly going to manage to take you down, and now you're in his world, and you never even had a chance to show the relevance of your training and to do the true applications, because it would be intent to do great bodily harm. And obviously, this is a dishonorable thing. There isn't a single great martial arts master that wouldn't agree with what I just said. You look at the Shaolin monks who smash pottery and bricks, with chops and strikes and their heads, right? And they train their body to be toughened. You look at the fact that in the last 4 years or so, I've gone through 4 or 5 punching bags, some of them ripped open, because of repetitive striking. Okay? So when you look at all this stuff, it is dishonorable to pretend that sparring means nothing, because you need that technique. If someone has a sloppy technique, I would love to, prove my point with someone who has a sloppy technique. You can take somebody who's fast and agile, but if he has a sloppy technique, I'm blocking all day. Yeah, man, Blatt, get that out of here. Bang, struck you. The technique is really a very important part of it. It helps with your timing. It helps with your speed. It helps with your defense. Okay? So this argument that a lot of these ninnies have made makes no sense. And then I'm going to end by saying this. This sort of promise fighting argument. The reason why it's called promise fighting is I promise to do this strike, and more often than not, I'm going to do it at less than normal speed. The unpredictability of fighting makes it so that these promise fighting techniques are obsolete. If you do manage to catch someone's arm, right away, they're going to be trying to break it, to get it free, or to strike you with their other arm. They're not going to sit there and let you break their arm, chop their neck, bash their groin, stomp their fucking foot, or whatever you plan to do. It's just nonsensical. It's not realistic. And a lot of these guys who make these arguments are bigger guys because they simply can't move faster, and they want respect for, whatever training they've done or whatever they're doing. And it's even more nonsensical. So you're slower, and that's why you do this in the first place and try to pretend sparring means nothing. But you expect to outmaneuver someone who's faster, and for them to do something you can predict, and they'll stay there. Anyone who's been in a real fight knows you're not sitting there like, I'm going to do this, this, and this, this, and this. You're blocking, and you're reacting. You're counterattacking, And the thought of a big, slow guy catching a fast Shaolin monk, for example, strike is fucking laughable. It is beyond laughable. Good luck with that. So when you see someone striking as fast as I am, that promise fighting, that self-defense series of moves argument is out the window. Nonsense. So now hopefully I've put things into perspective for you once again so that you can understand how nonsensical these Poindexters who argue that point fighting is irrelevant are. Show me one wise, insightful martial artist who says that. You will never find one. You will find these kind of goofy white guys these kind of effeminate Asian guys, these weirdos. But you'll never find the Confucius type guy. You'll never find a senior monk, you know, whatever they're called. The name has slipped my mind, you know. You'll never find a grand master making such nonsensical arguments, because most of their training, most of their learning experiences with other people consist of sparring. Like when Muhammad Ali, he sparred with some Japanese guy or something like that, right? I'll look it up and put it in the comments. So it's like, well, yes, this shows what you need to learn, where you're vulnerable, who's better than who's more proficient than who, and who can kill the other one first. In most, depending on how much better they are, how much more points they score, it shows you the ratio. Say the guy wins 10-0, right? That means you would expect this guy in every single exchange to strike the other guy first. So when the battlefield and you're rushing toward each other, this guy would outmaneuver that guy in almost pretty much every single exchange. Every time you run that scenario, you would expect him to outmaneuver the guy who couldn't score a point and stab him first.